Hi, I'm Zach Cowan, and thanks for studying the Doctrine and Covenants with me. And so today we're going to cover Doctrine and Covenants section 1, verses 1 through 16. And so there's a thing at the very beginning of the Doctrine and Covenants called the chronological order of things, and this shows you where each revelation took place. So you can look it up, and it's like, oh, it happened in this town and this year, and here's the section that was given. Well, section 2 is the first revelation that's given, other than the first vision. And that's the visit of Angel Moroni to the prophet Joseph Smith. But then section 1 doesn't come for 8 years later. After 66 other sections have been given, then section 1 comes. Because at this point, remember, they were all handwriting down the revelations if anybody wanted to know anything. And so they finally decided it might be really beneficial if we had a book. And so as they were compiling this, they were really struggling, like, well, how do we introduce it and what do we say? And eventually, the prophet Joseph Smith inquired of the Lord, and section 1 came. It's called the preface of the Book of Mormon, and which is really interesting, that whole idea of preface. This is what the Lord wants people to know before studying the Doctrine and Covenants. Here's his expectations for them. And so let's dive into it. If you were to look anywhere and just scan over it, you don't really need to read them too hard, but verses like 1 through 11, and just look for any phrases or indications of who this book is written to and written for. I'm going to give you just a second to do that. And so again, verses 1 through 11, scan through it, see what kinds of things you can come up with. You may even want to pause the video for a moment as you do that. Okay, you probably saw things like, this is to the members of my church. This is to people who are on the Isles of the Sea, to people of the whole world, to people who are being missionaries. Like, the Doctrine and Covenants is not just for specific members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's for everybody. And so what's the Lord's message for everybody? Well, that's found in verses 12 through 16. So again, you may want to pause for a moment and then just check out verses 12 through 16. What's the Lord's message to the whole world? Perfect. All right. Some of the things you probably saw is the Lord said, look, I'm coming, and there's going to be some, in preparations for me coming, I'm a little angry at some of the things that have happened. Specifically, like verse 14, people aren't trying to hear my voice or seek my guidance. They're rejecting the prophets. And those who reject prophets, he says, will be cut off. Well, cut off from what? Like, cut off from God? We know that's not true. Like, God still likes and loves people who aren't listening to prophets, and like, they're trying to do good. So they're cut off from additional blessings. They're cut off from additional feelings and help that they could receive. They're cut off from the privilege of following prophets, which brings greater peace and comfort and can certainly help a life. In verse 15, he brings up that they've strayed from the ordinances. They're no longer keeping the ordinances. They're not concerned with making covenants with him. In verse 16, the problem of idolatry, especially, and this just, like, compared to Joseph's world, to our world, this thing that we worship, the stuff that we make more than the thing who made us, it becomes even bigger. And he talks about, look, you're spending your time on things that are going to rust and rot. And so it's really easy. Well, how do you tell what you worship? Oh, it's not just what you pray to. It's what you give your time and your talents, your energy and your purpose towards. So you can say, well, I spend a lot of my time working. Good, why do you work? Well, I work to make some money. Well, why are you making money? So I can take care of my family. Why are you taking care of your family? So that my family might have opportunities and choices to develop, to grow. See, there's a difference. If we're just working for stuff, then that might be the thing we're worshiping. But if we're working in order to build attitudes and attributes and characteristics and to come closer to God and to build that and to help people, then there's an indication of what we're worshiping. All right, thanks for studying verses 1 through 16. Next time we'll finish section 1.